Hello, good morning. Let me know in the comments if you're watching live, if you're watching on the replay. Also, why not comment? Let me know that you've watched along. Today we are talking about managing up, and it's because I sent a poll and the majority voted for it. So that's what we're doing today. And if you've got any comments, questions, thoughts, or smart remarks, as my old coach used to say, pop them in the comments and I will do my best to answer as we go through. So I've got some slides for us today just because I thought it would make it a bit more visually interesting than just having me chatting away at you. So let me get those ready. Hang on. Okay, I don't think that's actually going to work the way I was planning to. So never mind, let's ignore the slides. I will figure out how to do that for next time. Okay, let's dive in then, managing up. So I'm imagining if you have dialed in to watch this or clicked watch to watch it live or on the replay, you are feeling some sort of frustrations with your line manager. And that doesn't surprise me at all because I did a poll a few weeks ago now, and about 50 people replied, and 2/3 of you said you are not getting what you need or desire from your line manager, which is really sad, but also not a surprise to me, frankly. So this session today is hopefully going to give you some thoughts about what you can do in that situation, but also it's meant to help those of you who have great line managers, or at least good line managers, where you are getting some of what you need to really just make that extra step and make it a really good working relationship. So I'm assuming that you are maybe not getting what you need. Maybe you don't get enough of their time. So I went out to everybody who voted in the poll and said that you weren't getting what you wanted from your line manager. And I said, well, what is it that you want that you feel like you're not getting? And the thing that was most commonly commented on was, I don't get enough of their time. Don't get enough of their time. I don't get enough of their attention. And I think that's really, really key because we're all really busy, mostly, and your line manager's probably also really busy. So that's one thing. Another theme that came up, and something I've experienced before, is that they're a bottleneck. So it might be the situation that you're sending things to them for approval or for a decision and just not getting a response. It might be that you're asking to have a conversation with them, and then it's like a day or a week or, several weeks even before you can get some time in their calendar because they're really busy. So you just are having this like slightly frantic Teams chat backwards and forwards. So that's what I'm imagining is the scenario. So what is it that you want? That was what I went back and said to the people who voted in that poll. What do you desire from your line manager that you're not currently getting? And the responses were decisions. We want information in a timely way. We want time in the diary. We want to feel like our work matters to them, like I matter, like my work matters, and that my team matters. And I think that's particularly seems to be important for those of you who are in quite big departments or directorates where your manager maybe is looking after several teams and the other team or teams seem to be getting priority. For some of you, it seems like what you want is for your manager to back off because actually you're quite capable and your manager is tending to micromanage, or kind of if you're expressing that you're unsure about something, they're just taking it from you and doing it for you instead of coaching you through learning how to do that thing yourself. So how do we get that? How do we get those things that we desire? Well, my suggestion is that actually there are some mistakes that we need to talk about first. And I think some key mistakes that people make when they are working with a line manager is they forget that their line manager is human too. And that their line manager has their own preferences, ways of working, things that they need as well. There's also this mistake around expecting them to know what you want or how to work with you. And then kind of being too demanding, but in quite a vague, broad way, and that's not very specific. And like it's almost like the opposite of this experience. I used to work with a manager who was a great manager in a lot of respects. But he often didn't know exactly what he wanted. And so let's say you'd like drafted a presentation that you wanted him to comment on, send it to him, and he'd be like, I just need it to be more. More what? More what? So there's that kind of, being too demanding, but in a really vague way. So what is the big idea here? The big idea is that it can be really helpful to think of your line manager as one of your most important stakeholders. And this can be really beneficial because it kind of takes them off the pedestal that you might have put them on. Not everybody has their boss on a pedestal, but I know in my career, I certainly have. Early on in my career, particularly, I kind of was looking to my line manager to be all the things and really put her on this pedestal. And that was really tricky. It caused a lot of angst for me. So treat them like your most important stakeholder. Now, when you're approaching working with a stakeholder, what is it that you need to do? Well, I would suggest what you need to do is figure out what they need from you. And it's exactly the same with the line manager. So I think there are 3 pieces to this dynamic. There's knowing yourself. What are your personal work preferences? What are your favoured ways of working? How do you like to receive information? When are you most energetic in your work? What do you actually need support with from your line manager? Then there's all of those types of questions, but applied to the manager. So do a bit of a research project around your manager in the same way that you might with a stakeholder group. Get feedback from them. If you can't get time in their diary to get that feedback, or if you don't think this is the kind of thing they would reply to an email about, do a bit of a study and just see what you can observe about their ways of working. Do they seem to be most engaged in the morning or in the afternoon? Do they seem to prepare in advance of meetings, or do they tend to sort of fly by the seat of the pants? Do they seem to know what's going on evenly across the different teams that they are responsible for? Those kinds of things. So study them, get to know their preferences. And then the last bit is the work. Get to know what bits of and what level of your work or your team's work that your line manager needs to know about. And you might instinctively think, well, they need to know about all of it, but actually that's not true. And this is especially key if you are somebody who is if you are somebody who's in like a mid-level role, reporting to somebody who's quite a bit more senior to you. So for example, if you report directly to a director, or like a faculty leader or a school lead, like head of school, whatever, those kinds of positions where they are actually quite a few grades above you, and then you're kind of that bit removed, they probably don't actually need to know the ins and outs of what you're doing. And if they trust you, they will leave you alone. And that can be where you feel really isolated and sort of, what is even the word? Yeah, isolated and abandoned almost. But in their head, they're thinking, oh, well, they're a safe pair of hands. I'll just let them get on with it. But they are kind of taking the approach that no news is good news. So you need to be willing to be in front of them. So when you're thinking about the work and both of your respective responsibilities and accountabilities for the work, what are the bits that they need to know about? What are the bits that you need for them to know about? And what are the bits that you can help them to do some of the heavy lifting with? So let's say they are going to a committee meeting that is about an area of work that you or your team are responsible for. Do the drafting, give them a briefing, like really do as much as you can to help them out in advance of that meeting so that they can sound like they know what they're talking about. So there's an element of helping them to save face. There's also something about in that doing the heavy lifting and sort of drafting for them. It means you can then sort of script a bit. So I used to with the director who was good at this. He was quite mostly trusting you just get on with our own area of work and so you need things from him. He was somebody who had worked in the institution for a long time. He had great relationships with all of the senior colleagues, the rest of the leadership team. And we all knew that if he went and had a quiet coffee with somebody, he could probably get them to agree to whatever it was that we wanted much faster than if we, let's say me as a grade 8, took that same request to my peer, who was also a grade 8. They would then have to escalate it to their director. Their director would make a decision, and then it would come back down. Then there would be a committee, and then it would come across to me, and then I might eventually be able to make that work. If I went to him and said, can you go and have a conversation with this other director because I need this outcome? He'd be like, yeah, sure. Go and have the coffee. He would get the outcome. He would bring it back, and then I could get on with my work. So although I don't like that is how things get done, that is kind of how things often get done. So in terms of the work, it can be really valuable to know what you need from your line manager in terms of allowing you to get on and do your work, and then asking them really explicitly, almost with a script in some cases, go and have this conversation, get this outcome for me. It will make a huge difference. Thank you. So be really specific in your demands. And the other thing is prompt them to help them save face. So if there is something coming up that you can see from your vantage point in the team or in the organization, tell them. Tell them rather than let them kind of stumble into something that's going to get them sort of caught up or looking like they didn't know what was going on. Just give them a ring, send them a Teams message, whatever that mechanism is. They will really appreciate it. Okay, so those are my suggestions. What I imagine you might be thinking if you're watching this is, yeah, that all sounds nice, Fiona, but actually, how do I do this in reality? And so I've got a worksheet for you. If you want the worksheet, let me know in the comments or send me a direct message saying worksheets, please, and I will send it over to you. What the worksheet does is basically helps you to do that identifying process. What is it that I need? What am I like? What are my preferences about work? and what are my manager's preferences and preferred ways of working, and it tracks them side by side, and it can be so eye-opening to see some of those differences. Oh, actually, I like to work from the detail. Oh, they like to see the big picture. It's not to say that you don't both get to the same end goal, but it means that once you've got that information, you can start adapting how you give them information so that it's easier for them to absorb. And a really straightforward way that this has played out in my career is an early line manager I had. Written about this in a post before, so you might have heard it or read it, but I used to have this line manager. I'm a details focused person, and I would like to write a nice long email where I've considered every word very carefully and outlined what the situation is and some options and all the surrounding criteria and things to think about. And then at the end, eventually ask for their opinion. And I would do all this writing and drafting and email it to her. She worked in an office just around the corner from me. And one day she was like, Fiona, I actually don't care about the detail, and I trust you to have good decision making. So in future, instead of cluttering up my inbox, which, let's face it, is going to take me ages to get back to you about, because I'm going to put off reading that email because I don't want all the detail. Instead of that, can you just come and knock on my door and say, this thing's happened, I'm going to do this, is that okay? And then I can chip in with anything that you might not have thought of. Happy days. All of a sudden, that bit of bottleneck is released and I can get on with things and get the information out of her that I need much more quickly. But if I didn't know that I had that preference for writing, she has this preference for talking, and that I have a preference for detail and she has a preference for big picture, we would never have been able to make that adaptation. So yeah, there's a worksheet that will help you to figure out some of those differences, and then help you also to think about how can you shift your approach to get what you need out of those conversations. All right, so here's the reminder. They don't have much time. Make it easy for them. And be very specific in your requests. Oh, here's Kiwi. Be really specific in your requests to them, and really identify what your own needs are. What is it that you need from your line manager? Study them. Ask about their preferences. Observe what it is that works well, what things are maybe not working so well that you can adjust. Make life really easy for them. If you are going, oh, okay, yeah, that's all fine, but actually, how do I do that? And your nervous system is kind of jangling at the idea of making a request from your line manager in that way, come and chat to me, because I can probably help you with not only how to make that request in a dignified and respectful way, but also with identifying what is it about that conversation that has your nervous system jangling, so that we can help to smooth it out for future conversations. If you like this kind of topic, there are a few ways that you can get more of them. So firstly, on my LinkedIn profile, you can go to my profile page, find the bell, click the icon, and then you will be notified every time I've got new videos or new posts coming out. You can also subscribe to my newsletter, where I write sort of longer form articles and things, and give sort of more in-depth advice. And finally, you could join my program if you would like. So the Wayfinders program doors are open at the moment. We'll be starting in a month, so end of May. And it is a mentoring program for professional services staff in higher education. So if you've watched this video and gone, that all sounds great, I don't know how to actually go about implementing it, then you would be a great fit for that program, because we will go through in quite a bit of detail how but also like the what to do, but also really the how, and helping you to prepare for some of those more tricky conversations. All right, hope that helped. There don't seem to have been any comments coming in, so let me know if anything comes up afterwards, or if you've got a really specific scenario that you want to chat through with me, let me know. Comment below if you want the worksheet, and the next video in 2 weeks' time will be about giving feedback, either up the way as part of this managing up process, or down the way if you are managing people, or even sideways if it's to a colleague. All right, thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.